Hello and welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. There's a lot of talk around carbon credits, and from a livestock producer's perspective, it may seem like just a lot of talk. But the truth is, the entire value chain can move the needle when it comes to climate change. Joining us today to talk about a new cloud based platform providing economic incentives related to on farm sustainability practices is Kendra Tolley, Vice President of Product for Athian. Welcome, Kendra. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope I got that company name right. Did I do that right?
Athian.
Athian. All right. Well, thank you for straightening me out on that. All right. So, welcome and tell us. Let's get started here. Tell us a little bit about Athian and what your role is with the company.
Yeah. So, Sarah, thank you so much for having me on. So, first, what is Athian? Athian is the world's first carbon marketplace tailored specifically for the livestock industry. And who am I? I'm Kendra Tolley. I'm the VP of Product at Athian, which means it's my job to set the vision and the strategy for the product that we're building out. And if you look at my background at all, you'll see that there's really no sustainability there or agriculture. I actually have a fintech background. My last role was at a fintech company that built out automation for banks. And prior to that, I was an actual banker. I had all the roles and wore all the hats. I was a chief credit officer, chief compliance officer, internal auditor, consultant, all of those different roles. But when I was with this company in my last fintech, I joined them as a startup, and I was with them for 7.5 years, and they went on to have a very successful IPO. And about that time, I picked my head up and looked around and said, is helping bankers make more money really the thing that's going to get me out of bed every day? And it wasn't. So I had the opportunity to join Athian. And to be honest, I have a brother that has a small cow-calf operation. He's got about 40 acres, about 22 head of cattle at any one time. And he is very, very focused on regenerative farming and sustainable practices. And when I talk to him about climate change, he's, really is not all that excited about a conversation about climate change. He is very excited about doing the right thing for his herd and for his farm. And he was very excited about the opportunity for me to join Athian. And so me thinking about being able to empower producers to be able to make on-farm practice changes is a thing that gets me out of bed every day.
So, how did the company get started? You said it's kind of a startup. So, give us a little bit of its history and how it came to be.
Yeah, so the inspiration behind Athian was really grounded in the fact that large companies, retailers, CPGs have made very public commitments about how to meet climate goals and how to address the issues around climate change. Many of them, when they made their goals, had no idea that the majority of the emissions that they are responsible for are actually produced at the producer level. And so they made all of these commitments on things that they can't change. So there needed to be a mechanism to incentivize producers to make on-farm practice changes so that the end of the value chain could actually meet their goals. And so really this is about having an ecosystem that allows the end of the value chain to meet their goals while financially incentivizing producers to make on-farm practice changes.
That financial incentive is usually something that gets them to stand up and take a little bit more notice. So,
Yeah,
so
as it
let's talk a little let's talk a little bit about that commitment that the company has to the livestock industry. You mentioned it, but can you give me a little more insight into that?
Yeah, so we really see ourselves as an industry convener. We knew early on that there was no way that one single company was going to be able to solve this problem, that it had to be everyone in the industry collaborating and looking for solutions, and really everyone having a seat at the table. So it was very important for us as a startup to ensure we had validation from the industry that we were approaching this problem in the right way. So we just closed our seed round about a month or so ago, and as a part of that effort, it was really important that we had no money that came from financial investors. No VCs were part of this at all. So our first investors were Elanco, gave us our very first seed funding. We then brought Nutrient on board with Chris Koopman. We then brought in Tyson and California Dairies and DSM. So those were our initial funders. And really what they do for us is give us insight into what makes this a commercially viable conversation, both at the large company, the CPG retailer, the processor side, as well as from the producer's perspective.
All companies that are very much committed to that sustainability sector. Certainly hear from them on a regular basis on those on that issue. I do want to take just a minute here to remind those of you that are joining us here that feel free to post any questions that you might have in the chat there, and we will get to this. If you are joining us in your social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you can post your questions directly there, and we can get those as well. So, Kendra, tell us about the value that beef and dairy producers can obtain from on-farm sustainability. What can they expect? What should they, be prepared for?
Yeah. So we really look at this from the perspective of none of the goals are going to be met unless there is a way for the entire industry, that all of the producers, 700,000 or more producers, to be able to participate in this marketplace and be able to take advantage of the opportunity as well as be part of the solution. And so what we are trying to do is to build out a platform that allows producers, first of all, to engage in these activities, but to make it as simple as we possibly can make it. Step-by-step instructions. This is what you do. This is how you comply. These are the options that you have. And really spend a lot of time focusing on giving the producer all of the information that they need in order to make an informed decision on what on-farm practice change they should engage in or something that might not make sense for them. And so we think about that as providing them a catalog, a library of potential interventions that they can do on farm, and then give them all of the information to say, yes, this makes sense for me, or no, it doesn't. And then ensuring that whatever activity that they engage in or any practice change will come with a financial incentive to do that for the end of the value chain.
So, can you give us an idea on, you're talking about sustainability, but how best is that measured? What all is entailed when it comes to a dairy or a beef operation saying, okay, this is how it's going to be measured. This is what's going to happen. Are there specific things that are laid out?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And such a big piece of the puzzle. Really, it starts with being able to understand where you are today. What is your impact? What are the emissions that are associated with your on-farm practices? Once you understand that baseline, then you have an opportunity to understand where you might be able to affect the most change. Where we see a lot of opportunity at Athian today, the low-hanging fruit, as it would be, is around enteric emissions associated with the cows, as well as manure, methane. Those are places in which we can affect some pretty quick change with some on-farm practice changes. From a producer's perspective, what this means is there might be an opportunity to change your feed practices. There might be a feed additive that you can use. There might be some manure management practices that you can change that have a significant impact on emissions. Later down the road, looking at opportunities around maybe solar panels or other ways in which you could reduce your electricity usage. And also for any producers that might also have crop production as part of their operation, being able to incorporate that in. The four main sources of emissions, particularly on a dairy farm, are around the feed itself, the enteric methane, manure methane, and electricity. And those are all what we call protocols, or really interventions that we can tailor programs around, that we can offer to the producers. So from their perspective, what they would see is essentially a step-by-step instruction. How do I do this? How do I comply? How do I know that this is going to be credibly offered to the end of the value chain, that there's actually going to be a financial incentive associated with that? That's the role that we play.
What about benchmarking? How important is that when it comes to a farm sustainability initiative? To be able to say, I was here and now I'm here, or does that factor in at all?
Yeah, that is a significant piece of this. So being able to say where you are and how much you've changed month over month or year over year, that's what the end of the value chain is looking for, and that's what they're really buying access to, is that information to understand how you've changed and what you've improved. Because then the CPGs, the retailers, the processors and packers, they use that information towards meeting their goals. So specifically the benchmark or the starting place, those companies use that to be able to say, this is, I want to improve from this place. And then whatever on-farm practice change that a producer makes, being able to use that quantified reduction or avoidance towards meeting their goals.
Right, because it is getting pushed in from the commercial side, the retail side. These folks want to see the industry make some improvements in certain areas. So is the technology that you offer to beef and dairy producers, where is it at this point in terms of commercial availability? Is it something that's out there? Is it initial phases? What are we looking at?
Yeah, great question. So we just launched our what we term our MVP, our first base product last month. We're super excited about that, and we have producers that in our pilot program that are helping us ensure that it's meeting their needs, that it's easy to use. You know how a pilot program works,
Mhm.
making sure we're rolling this out effectively. We intend to have in Q3 the solution rolled out at a larger scale, so we can have a lot more participation and scale it out to a lot more producers. So at the moment, it's very much a pilot phase, but by Q3, we intend to have a lot more producers on the platform and have a lot more opportunity to reach and impact more farms.
Is this a platform that would apply to any size producer?
Absolutely. That is a core component of the product. We want to be able to offer incentives from the smallest farm to the largest operations, because really that's the only way that the end of the value chain is going to meet their goals. We have to have the opportunity for as many producers as possible to be able to leverage the platform or to be able to participate in a marketplace like this. And so we're very focused on building out a technology that is usable by all types of operations. And it really does lend itself to the type of technology that we're using. We can iterate very quickly. We can add new types of interventions very quickly because it's a SaaS-based model based on technology that's in the cloud. We can quickly iterate.
So how is data collected and verified, I guess would be an important part of it as well.
Yeah, it is a very big piece of it. So, I'm glad you brought that up. So, at a very high level, um, collecting data and using that as the source of truth for the verification or for the credibility around the asset, that's one of our core components of the platform. So, integrating directly into on farm systems. So, that one, it's easier for the producer to be able to generate the credit. There's not a lot of data entry that the producer has to do. But secondly, integrating directly to the on-farm systems helps ensure that the source data or the the information that we're using in order to quantify any impact is credible source data. This makes it more of a value to the end of the value chain so that they know that they're getting a good, credible asset whenever they buy any of these credits. But also from the producer perspective, which we're very, very focused on, it makes it easy for them to interact with the platform and to generate these assets.
So how receptive have producers been at this point to, looking at some new things, new ways of doing things? What's kind of been the reception that you've gotten?
Yeah. So, to be very honest, it's been the entire scale of types of reaction we can get. So, we have some producers that are incredibly excited about the opportunity. They see that this is got a long-term potential to add an additional revenue stream to their operations. They think that if they don't engage now, there might be some sort of mandatory um, mandate that has them engage whether they want to or not. And so they really want to be on the cutting edge of this, and they want to be part of affecting change, and really to have some power in saying how this should go, and how they should be impacted. We've talked with a lot of producers who are a little unsure. They see an opportunity, but they might be a little hesitant to participate right away. They want to see how it's going to work and how it plays out. And of course, we've seen producers who don't think that this is going to be something that has staying power, that it's going to be a long-term solution. We at Athian, though, believe it absolutely is going to be here for a while. Those commitments are not going to go away from those players at the end of the value chain. And so we really want to be able to put the producer in the driver's seat to be able to say, this is what I will or I won't do.
That's a typical adoption curve, right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
always those who are like, I'm going to do this. Those are like, I don't know. And those are like, there's no way, you know?
Exactly, exactly.
So what's the difference between offset carbon credits and insetting? And why
Yeah.
is insetting so important to companies like McDonald's and
Yeah.
Starbucks?
Yeah, so such a great question, and really a lot of what we talk about on a daily basis. So if you think about what an offset market is, and I'm going to use the example of Microsoft and the Amazon rainforest because it's such a easy thing to illustrate. What Microsoft does when they buy an offset, they're essentially offsetting the amount of pollution or the amount of impact they have on the climate. They are essentially buying something from someone else. So the Amazon example is, let's keep a little bit of the rainforest intact. Amazon will pay for that to happen. It's two entities that know nothing about each other. They have no business relationship at all. It is literally like a debit and a credit. It is an offset. These two things balance each other out. What Microsoft is purchasing is the ability to continue to pollute, and they're offsetting that with keeping a little bit more of the rainforest intact. What's very different about an inset marketplace is that all of the activities are contained within a specific value chain, and even more specifically within, like for dairy, like a milk shed. So where does this milk sourced, and where does it go, and who takes advantage of the product? In an inset market, the players all are collaborating on putting this product together and developing the product. So milk or cheese or dairy, any other dairy product. So they all are impacted by the emissions that are happening as part of that activity. But on the flip side of that, they all get to take credit for any of the savings or reductions or positive impacts that are happening on farm. So in this way, an inset means it's specifically within a particular value chain or supply chain. All of the players get to collaborate or participate, is a better word to use, in providing financial incentives back to the producer, as well as to take credit for any of the on-farm practice changes that a producer may implement. So a very different model.
So if we've got producers out there that are interested in getting more information, where's the best place to go? Where would you send them?
Yeah, please go to our website. Our website is www.athian.ai. Athian is ATHAIN.ai. We've got lots of information there. We've got some FAQs. And we also, importantly, if you would really like a more in-depth information, we have a little form that you can fill out that says partner with us. We will respond, and we'll get back to you and give you all the information that we can and help answer any questions.
Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our viewers with here today?
Really, that our goal and our mission is to empower producers to make on-farm changes. And we really don't think that producers will make those changes without the financial incentives to do it. And so our goal is really to build the ecosystem for that to happen. And we want the producer to be able to say, this makes sense for me or not, and not have to comply with any regulations or any mandates from anyone within the supply chain. So we're trying very hard to get ahead of solving that problem for our producers.
Our thanks to you, Kendra. Thank you so much for your time today and for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. This was amazing. I appreciate the opportunity.
For all of you that are joining us here online, we thank you for being with us as well. We know you're busy, and we really appreciate you giving a few minutes of your time here. A reminder that this and all sessions of Feedstuffs 365 are viewable in on demand at feedstuffs365.com. Feel free to share those or go back and watch them at any point. Until next time, for Feedstuffs 365, I'm Sarah Muirhead.